The stadium lights are blinding. It's March 1992, Melbourne, Australia, and a cricket ball is about to change the fate of a nation. A man stands at the center of the pitch, grey-haired at 39, his team down and out, written off by every pundit in the room. In a few hours, he will lift the World Cup for Pakistan for the first and only time in the country's history. But here's what nobody in that stadium knows, that trophy isn't the story. It's just the beginning of one. Because the man holding it will go on to build a cancer hospital from nothing but grief and stubbornness, found a political party that terrified the country's most powerful institutions, become prime minister of 220 million people, get thrown out of office in a midnight vote, survive an assassination attempt caught live on camera, and end up sitting alone in a prison cell, mostly blind in one eye, while the world argues about whether he's a hero or a villain. This is the story of Imran Khan, cricketer, philanthropist, prime minister, prisoner. And whatever you think you know about him, stay with me, because the real story is stranger, sadder, and more remarkable than the headlines ever let on. Let's go back. Not to the stadium. To Lahore, Pakistan, in 1952, in a comfortable, well-off Pashtun family that had already produced doctors, and a household that valued education, discipline, and cricket almost as a religion. Imran Khan Niazi was born into privilege, sure, but privilege doesn't hand you talent, and it definitely doesn't hand you resilience. As a boy, he wasn't the prodigy everyone assumes he was. He was skinny. Awkward. His cousins, including future cricket legends Javed Burki and Majid Khan, were already stars in the family before Imran had proven anything at all. Imagine that pressure. Growing up in a house where the dinner table conversation is about centuries and wickets, and you're the kid still trying to make the school team. He went to Atchison College and then Cathedral School in Lahore, decent student, better athlete, but nothing that screamed, future legend. At 18, he did what a lot of ambitious young Pakistanis with means did, he left for England, enrolling at Oxford University, to study politics, philosophy, and economics. Nobody watching him then would have guessed that this quiet, somewhat reserved young man was going to become one of the most electrifying fast bowlers the sport has ever seen. Because here's the truth about Imran Khan that gets lost in the mythology, he wasn't born great. He built himself, piece by piece, through years of failure most people never hear about. His early cricket career was a grind, not a fairy tale. When he first started playing for Pakistan in the early 1970s, he was inconsistent. His bowling action was raw. Critics said he didn't have the discipline. He spent years bouncing between county cricket in England and the national team, refining a body and a technique that, frankly, didn't come naturally. Fast bowling is one of the most physically brutal things a human being can do to themselves, the repeated impact tears at your back, your knees, your spine. Imran suffered stress fractures that could have ended his career before it even started. Doctors told him the injuries were serious enough to make some athletes quit entirely. He didn't quit. He rebuilt his action almost from scratch, spending grueling hours retraining his body, and when he came back, he wasn't just good, he was terrifying. By the late 1970s and through the 80s, Imran Khan had become one of the greatest all-rounders the game has ever seen, a fast bowler who could also bat like a specialist, a rare combination that put him in the same breath as legends like Ian Botham and Kapil Dev. He took over 300 test wickets. He scored thousands of runs. And in 1982, he became captain of the Pakistan cricket team. But captaincy wasn't a coronation, it was a battlefield. Pakistani cricket at the time was fractured by internal politics, regional rivalries, and a team that had never quite found its identity on the world stage. Imran took a group of gifted but undisciplined players and forged them, through sheer will, into a unit that believed it could win. It took a decade. There were heartbreaks along the way, painful losses, injuries that sidelined him for long stretches, moments in the mid-1980s where he actually announced his retirement, convinced his body simply couldn't take any more. And then, in one of the most quietly dramatic turns in sports history, Pakistan's president personally asked him to come back and lead the team into the 1987 World Cup. He returned. That campaign ended in disappointment, a painful semi-final loss on home soil. Most players would have called it there. Imran stayed for one more shot. That brings us back to Melbourne, 1992. Pakistan's team was inconsistent all tournament, nearly eliminated in the group stage after a string of losses, saved in part by a rained-out match that gave them just enough points to survive. Imran, battling a shoulder injury so severe he could barely lift his arm to bowl, told his young, unpredictable squad something that became legend in Pakistani sports history. He told them to fight like cornered tigers. Not champions. Not favorites. Cornered animals with nothing left to lose. And they did. Pakistan tore through the knockout rounds and beat England in the final, with Imran lifting the trophy as team captain, in what remains, to this day, the single greatest moment in Pakistani cricket history. He retired from the sport almost immediately after, at the absolute peak of his fame, in a country that worshipped him like a demigod. Here's where most highlight reels stop the story. But this is where the real story actually begins. Because a few years before that World Cup win, Imran Khan's mother, Khanum, died of cancer. And in Pakistan at the time, there was no dedicated cancer hospital in the entire country capable of giving patients proper treatment. Families with money flew overseas for care, and everyone else simply suffered and often died without it. Watching his own mother go through that helplessness left a wound in him that cricket trophies couldn't heal. So Imran Khan decided to build a hospital. Not fund one. Not attach his name to one. Build one, from the ground up, with no state funding, no wealthy family fortune to draw from, just relentless fundraising, country to country, door to door, asking ordinary Pakistanis and the diaspora abroad to give whatever they could. People thought it was impossible. A cricketer with no medical or business background trying to construct a world-class cancer research hospital from public donations in a developing country. He was mocked, doubted, and told repeatedly it would collapse under its own ambition. In 1994, the Khanum Memorial Cancer Hospital opened in Lahore, and it remains, decades later, one of the largest charity-funded cancer hospitals in the world, treating patients regardless of their ability to pay. It's arguably his single greatest achievement, and it's the one least talked about internationally. He later built a second one in Peshawar. He also founded Namal University to bring higher education to an underserved region of the country. This was a man who had already achieved the highest peak of his profession and chose, instead of retiring into comfort, to spend a decade building institutions from scratch. And then, somehow, he decided that wasn't enough either. In 1996, Imran Khan entered politics, founding a party called Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, the Movement for Justice. And if his cricket career had a slow, painful climb, his political one was almost cruelly slower. For nearly 2 decades, PTI was a fringe party. In the 1997 general election, it won exactly 0 seats. 0. The most famous man in the country, a national hero who had united Pakistan around a cricket trophy, could not translate that adoration into political power. He was mocked in the press as a celebrity dabbling in something he didn't understand. Established political dynasties that had run Pakistan for generations simply absorbed him into irrelevance, year after year, election after election. Most people, at that point, would have gone back to a comfortable life of charity work and cricket commentary. Imran Khan spent almost 20 years in the political wilderness, building his party inch by inch, campaigning relentlessly, refusing to fold his movement into the establishment. The turning point came slowly, then all at once. Around 2011, a massive rally in Lahore signaled that something had shifted. A new generation of young, urban Pakistanis, frustrated with corruption and dynastic politics, began rallying behind him in numbers nobody had predicted. By the 2013 election, PTI had become the third largest party in parliament. It was still not enough to win power, and Imran cried foul over alleged rigging, leading to prolonged sit-in protests in the capital that paralyzed the government for months and further divided public opinion about him. Some saw a principled reformer refusing to accept a corrupt system, others saw a sore loser holding the country hostage. Then, in 2014, disaster struck in an almost unbelievable way. During one of those protests, Imran Khan fell from a moving forklift being used as a makeshift stage and suffered serious spinal injuries. He was rushed to the hospital, and for a moment, it seemed his political career, like his cricket career decades earlier, might be ended by his own body's breaking point. He recovered. He kept going. And in 2018, after 22 years of trying, Imran Khan and PTI won the general election, and he was sworn in as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Picture that for a second. A man who scored 0 seats in his first election, who buried his mother and built a hospital instead of a mansion, who fell off a forklift and kept campaigning from a wheelchair, was now leading a nuclear-armed nation of over 200 million people. It is one of the most remarkable underdog stories in modern political history. But power, as it turns out, was its own kind of battlefield, and this one had no rules he could outbowl. As Prime Minister, Imran Khan inherited an economy already under severe strain, and his government took Pakistan into an IMF bailout program, introduced austerity measures, and worked to expand social welfare initiatives, including a widely noted program to combat poverty and provide health insurance to lower-income families. He also launched an ambitious tree planting and reforestation initiative aimed at combating climate change and deforestation, which drew both praise and skepticism internationally. On foreign policy, tensions with India escalated sharply in 2019 following a terror attack and subsequent airstrikes between the two nuclear powers, and Khan's handling of the crisis, including the release of a captured Indian pilot, was seen by many as a moment of statesmanlike restraint that helped de-escalate the situation. His government also navigated the COVID-19 pandemic with a strategy, described as smart lockdowns, that avoided the harshest nationwide restrictions seen elsewhere, a choice that drew both credit for protecting a fragile economy and criticism over public health outcomes. But the machinery of Pakistani politics, particularly its historically powerful military establishment, has toppled prime ministers before, and in April 2022, Imran Khan became the latest to fall, removed from office through a no-confidence vote in parliament, after what he insisted, without providing conclusive public evidence accepted by courts, was a foreign-backed conspiracy involving the United States, an accusation American officials denied. Whatever the truth of it, what followed was extraordinary. Rather than fade away, Khan launched an aggressive protest movement against his removal, drawing massive crowds across the country, positioning himself as a martyr fighting a corrupt establishment. And then, in November 2022, at a rally in Wazirabad, gunmen opened fire on the truck he was riding on. Imran Khan was shot in the leg. Several people around him were wounded, one fatally. He survived what was, by any definition, an assassination attempt, caught partially on video and broadcast to a stunned nation. He was back on his feet campaigning within weeks. The final chapters of this story are still being written, and they are dark ones. Through 2023, Imran Khan was hit with a cascade of legal cases, corruption charges, allegations over the sale of state gifts he'd received as prime minister, and a case involving leaked state secrets, among dozens of others, some observers counting well over 100 separate cases filed against him. He has consistently denied all wrongdoing and maintains that the prosecutions are politically motivated, an accusation the government and judiciary reject. In May 2023, his arrest triggered nationwide riots, some of the worst political violence Pakistan had seen in years, followed by a sweeping crackdown on his party. In August 2023, he was arrested again, and this time, he did not walk free. As of 2026, Imran Khan remains in prison at Adiala Jail in Rawalpindi, convicted and sentenced on multiple charges, his appeals moving slowly through a heavily backlogged court system with no confirmed release date in sight. In recent months, deeply troubling reports have emerged about his health. His legal team says he has lost the vast majority of vision in one eye due to a documented eye condition they attribute to delayed medical treatment, a claim government-appointed doctors have disputed as overstated. His situation has drawn concern from human rights organizations and international bodies, and in a remarkable show of solidarity, 14 former international cricket captains publicly appealed to Pakistani authorities over concerns for his health and prison conditions. Even from behind bars, unable to campaign, his party's candidates performed unexpectedly strongly in national elections, a sign that whatever else has changed, his hold on a segment of the Pakistani public has not disappeared. There's a version of Imran Khan's personal life that reads almost as dramatically as everything else. He married 3 times. His first marriage, to British socialite Jemima Goldsmith in 1995, produced 2 sons and became a major public fascination, blending British high society with Pakistani politics, before the couple divorced in 2004, citing the pressures of Khan's political life in Pakistan. He later married television meteorologist Riyam Khan in 2015, a marriage that lasted only about 10 months. And in 2018, shortly before becoming Prime Minister, he married Bushra Bibi, a spiritual guide, in a private ceremony that added another layer of intrigue to his public story, and who, in a striking turn, now also sits convicted alongside him in the Al-Qadir Trust case, both maintaining their innocence. So what do we actually make of a man like this? He is one of the most contradictory, debated figures to come out of South Asia in the modern era. To his supporters, he is a rare thing in Pakistani politics, a man of considerable personal wealth and global fame who could have lived out his life in comfort, but chose instead to fight, repeatedly, against entrenched systems, whether that system was a cricket board that didn't believe in him, a medical infrastructure that failed his mother, or a political establishment that has now imprisoned him. To his critics, he is a populist whose economic management as prime minister left the country in crisis, whose protest tactics destabilized democratic institutions, and whose refusal to accept defeat gracefully, whether in elections or a no-confidence vote, reflects a dangerous unwillingness to work within the system he claims to want to reform. Both of those things can be true at once. That's what makes him one of the most fascinating, frustrating, and unresolved figures in modern history, a man nobody, not even his fiercest opponents, has ever managed to make boring. And maybe that's the real thread running through every chapter of his life. The skinny kid overshadowed by his cricketing cousins. The fast bowler rebuilding a broken body from scratch. The grieving son who turned loss into a hospital that has treated hundreds of thousands of patients who couldn't otherwise afford care. The politician who lost for 18 straight years and refused to disappear. The prime minister who was removed from power and came back louder. The man who survived a bullet and kept walking. Right now, in a cell in Rawalpindi, that same stubbornness is likely all he has left. No stadium, no rally, no title, just the will that carried a skinny kid from Lahore all the way to a World Cup, a hospital, and the highest office in his country. Whether history remembers him as a hero, a flawed reformer, or a cautionary tale probably depends on chapters that haven't been written yet. But one thing is undeniable, few people in modern history have lived a life with this many peaks, this many falls, and this much sheer refusal to stay down. If this story moved you even a fraction of how much it moved me putting it together, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what part of Imran Khan's story hit you hardest, and subscribe, because we're telling stories like this every single week, the true, complicated, human stories behind the headlines you think you already know. I'll see you in the next one.